Welcome, welcome. Settle in. Glad you're here with us. Welcome to Financing Philadelphia's Future. Today, our guest is Reverend Greg Holston. Very excited to have him. The best way to watch this is through the speaker view. You'll get the most that way, I believe. We will have some Q&A, but we're just going to start with a little intro. Welcome, Reverend Greg Holston. Reverend Holston is Senior Advisor on Advocacy and Policy at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. He's also Chair of the Criminal Justice Reform and Violence Prevention Committee for the Black Clergy of Philadelphia and vicinity. He's also a former pastor at Jane's Memorial Church. Good to have you with us.
So
And
glad.
today, Go ahead.
No, so glad to be with you.
Thank you. And today the conversation is around ETIs essentially as a tool for dealing with gun violence and seeing what we can do in terms of the economically targeted initiatives. And so we're going to be talking with Reverend Holston about that. Reverend Holston, you have a program, you and your colleagues have a program called the 57 Blocks Coalition. Tell us a little bit about how that got started and what's the status of it right now.
Well, because of the pandemic, part of Black clergy was really about trying to get more additional dollars for gun violence prevention. And we put together a coalition with the late Paula Peoples, the National Action Network, to help these groups come together so they could advocate in a stronger way for gun violence prevention dollars. At the same time, there was an article written by the Philadelphia Inquirer that told us about 57 blocks that had 10 or more shootings from 2015 to 2021. I always like to stop and just get people to think about that in their head. 10 or more shootings. Some of these blocks had 30 shootings from 2015 to 2021, basically a 6-year period. Think of the children on those blocks. Think of the young people on those blocks. Think of the grandparents on those blocks. Think of the people who have invested their time and their energy on those blocks for so many years, and how traumatizing it is to be fearful for your life just sitting on your porch on a summer day. What we also recognize, this article said, that 57 blocks, these 57 blocks, 53 out of the 57 were in formerly redlined areas by the 1937 redlining map of the city of Philadelphia, and made the strong connection between the disinvestment, the intentional racist disinvestment of these communities, these Black and brown communities, by our banks and our financial establishments, and the gun violence that we're seeing today. That and makes the strong argument that if we had more community investment, if we invested in these areas and in these people the same way we did in other areas, that this level of gun violence would not exist.
Thank you. That's helpful background. So this started when? When did the coalition come together and who's
Coalition
part
came,
of the coalition?
Thank you. The coalition came together the summer of 2022, and we went and had met with 76 different groups across the city of Philadelphia, many in rec centers and community centers and churches, mosques, all across the city of Philadelphia, talking to communities about this, getting a real strong response and asking them to join. And now we have about 75 different organizations that are part of this coalition. Gun violence organizations like Every Murder is Real, Frontline Dads, Mothers in Charge, Father's Day Committee, but also investment groups like the Reinvestment Fund, and this incredible organization as well as churches and mosques and whole denominations like the Presbyterian Church of Philadelphia also belongs to this group. So it is a diverse group. It is multiracial, multi-ethnic, suburban as well as urban, all coming around that we can address gun violence in the most effective way by the community investment in the hardest hit neighborhoods of Philadelphia.
Okay, great. And is there an action plan, or what are the types of ideas in the plan?
Yes. Well, the first action was to advocate for at least $100 million for gun violence prevention directed at community groups in the city. City of Philadelphia, unfortunately, has a history. Before the pandemic, they gave less than $1 million to community gun violence prevention organizations. Less than $1 million to community gun violence organizations. While other cities like Chicago and New York were giving 75 million, $90 million to these endeavors, we are woefully behind even our peer cities in terms of investing in gun violence prevention as a way of saving lives. And so that's the first thing, and we're still pushing for that. We got up to 20 million. We're a long ways from where we need to be in the city budget, but we have made some improvements in that area. And secondly, we are coming together, bringing gun violence prevention organizations together, hopefully through some of these resources and monies that we will receive, will help us be able to align community organizations with gun violence prevention organizations to collaborate in a greater way to reduce gun violence through credible messengers and restorative justice and workforce development and place-based greening and cleaning and trauma services. Those five solutions are really the ones that are the most effective for reducing gun violence. And by using all of those in a coordinated fashion, we feel very strongly we can reduce the numbers of gun violence, gun homicides, not only below 400, not only below 300, but we could go even lower in the numbers if we put all this together.
Thank you. Despite the recent headlines, I think about the Northeast shootings, which is just so horrible, I think the news reports have been that the violence has gone down somewhat. Can you give us an update on the state of gun violence since the
Yes.
pandemic, particularly, or the
Well,
state of the pandemic back then, we should say?
in 2019, we had about 362 homicides right before the pandemic. And that's about the average year. Over the last 50 years, we've averaged around 360 homicides a year. That's nothing to be happy about. That is actually very sad that we've averaged that many over 50 years, kind of showing that this is a chronic problem, besides being a public health problem, besides being a racial justice problem. Um, and then we shot up because of the pandemic. 499 in 2020, 563 in 2021, 513 in 2022. Last year, 416. So we shot up and we began to go back down. And so we're going in the right direction. We've had about a 30% reduction since September of 2022, mainly because we're doing, well, let me put it this way. Across the nation, because the pandemic is over, uh, across the nation, gun violence is going down, but it's not going down as nearly as fast as it's going down in the city of Philadelphia. 13% nationwide, 30% here in the city. So what's the difference? What are we doing here that we haven't done before? Well, here's the good news. The good news that the state ended up putting some money into, like they have never done before. And in 2022, they put $105 million into gun violence prevention. About half of that money came to the city of Philadelphia. And then they put $40 million in. About half of that money came to the city of Philadelphia as well. So when we got to the point in September of 2022, we started to see the downturn. We actually had more dollars for gun violence prevention than we ever have had in the history of this city. And I believe that is a direct cause for this reduction in gun violence in the city. It is
Wow.
directly related to increases in investment in community-based gun violence prevention organizations. We can do so much more if we had more resources for them.
Okay. I'm going to go to the audience, and I think Peter's going to give us some questions soon, but I have one more last one. Um, which of the programs have been most effective, do you think?
I couldn't say exactly which ones have been most effective. All our studies show all of them have ways of reducing violence. For example, just lighting, just some more lights reduces gun violence in some places as much as 29, 30%. Uh, Certainly, credible messengers have been proven all over the years to reduce gun violence, and uh, and so all of these methods are the best methods, not just from now, but the best methods that have been in play for the last 10 to 15 years that have shown the ability to reduce gun violence. We just need to apply more of them. For example, credible messengers, we've had about 70 of them in the city. With mainly Philadelphia Anti-Violence Network as the main group. If we up that to 300, just 300 of credible messengers talking directly to people involved in gun violence, we can go even further in reducing gun violence. Cities like St. Louis and Boston are doing incredible jobs with credible messengers. We can do more in the city and have even deeper and greater results.
Got it. I know we want to get into these economically targeted initiatives, so I'm going to let Peter ask that. Let's get a starting question there, Peter.
Thanks, Vanessa. Reverend Holston, there's been talk about a Marshall Plan or a concerted effort in a geographical area like the 57 plus blocks to focus resources on building up the economy, creating jobs, alleviating poverty, and attacking the underlying problems that give rise to the conditions where gun violence arises. Um, what are your thoughts about that kind of an approach of targeted, local, economically targeted investments?
Absolutely is what's needed. When I talk about solutions that reduce gun violence and have been effective, they've only been effective to a certain point. The redlining and the disinvestment is the cause of the gun violence. And until we correct that level of disinvestment that has happened over now almost 100 years of it in the city of Philadelphia and continues to this day, even though it's been outlawed 40 years ago. We will continue to see violence happen in the city of Philadelphia, no matter what else we do. That all the solutions I just mentioned help bring it down, but do not solve the problem.
So, Reverend Holston, do you have
It's really the kind of targeted investments.
a
Yes?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any insight into the scope of what could be done in terms of how much investment, let's say, in minority-owned small business development and minority home mortgages, things of that nature.
Well, every year, according um, to the work of our 57 block coalitions, that every year to this day, we are still losing about $1 billion in home mortgage loans that aren't going into hands of black and brown people because of mortgages not being given to black and brown people. So we're still losing billions of dollars each and every year, about a billion each year. And so we need at least these kinds of investments coming back to the community in a targeted way uh, to be able to recruit what we're still losing, let alone what we've been losing over these last 100 years. So it is when we talk about these kinds of ETAs that you're talking about, yes, hundreds of millions helps. It really does help the problem. But really, to make the real change, so we create the kind of communities that are safe all over this city that every citizen deserves, you're really talking about targeting billions of dollars into the hands of small business, in the hands of young people who are entrepreneurs, and into infrastructure and institutional building in the Black and Brown community.
And that's just to level the playing field.
Yes, that is just to level the playing field so that North Philly can look like Chestnut Hill and other parts of the city, and West Philly can look like other parts of the city that have no violence. There are sections of Philadelphia have not seen any shootings. And if you look at those sections, it is because of the levels of investment in institutions and schools that have been made by our city in those neighborhoods. We don't do the same thing in other neighborhoods.
So, and what role, Stan Shapiro is asking, the role of infrastructure improvements and how the uh, improving the infrastructure within these communities can help to alleviate the overall problem.
Well, certainly, number one thing, it can provide jobs for those in the community, well-paying jobs, good-paying jobs. We can start with that. But when you build the kind of infrastructure, whether it's the physical infrastructure of schools and bridges and roads, what that does to the psyche of the community, the well-being of the community. As one young person put it this way, I come in my neighborhood, I see glass everywhere. I see broken and boarded up homes. I see schools. The building is falling down around me. Paint is peeling from the ceiling. They don't care about us. Why should I care about myself? When we don't provide the right infrastructure for people to feel valued, guess what? They actually don't feel valued and they act out on that behavior. And that becomes our responsibility to provide for them. If we really believe in one Philadelphia, we really believe that every child and every citizen deserves all of the same advantages of anybody else in the city. We have to believe in these kinds of targeted investments to make up the difference from the past racism that has existed and continues to exist in the city.
So do you also see a form of reparation, that there's a
Yes,
way to
I,
repair some of the historical damage that's been done to the community?
I believe so, and I believe we shouldn't be afraid of the word reparations. But I also try to explain it in a way for people to simply understand that if you admit that there was something done wrong and you admit to that wrongdoing that has happened in the past, of course we would say we should repair the damage. If a child breaks a glass window in your house because he's playing baseball, the first thing we would ask the child is to admit that they were wrong for doing it. And then we would set up a structure in a way that for them to repair the damage. Okay, you're going to come and you're going to clean up my backyard, and that's the way you're going to pay me back for the damage that was being caused. We teach our children to be responsible to each other in that way. Why not our government being that responsible as well to deal with the racism that was institutionalized by our own federal government in the 1930s, went through legally all the way through the 1970s, and still exists today in the modern real estate industry, the continuing redlining, the continuing wrongdoing. First thing you need to do is admit that you were wrong. Second thing you need to do is stop doing what you're doing. And thirdly, you need to repair the damage that's been caused.
Well, Reverend Holston, we have within the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition a program that we're working on, multi-phase program to bring our money home, to have more of the money that we have in Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is is a poor city in terms of having a lot of poor people, but it's also a wealthy city in terms of overall having a lot of money. The money that we have in our city, when we put it in our large banks, tends to go elsewhere, chasing profits all around the world, rather than into local investments. And are thinking of ways to bring our money home, and working with institutions like minority deposit institutions, community banks, credit unions that will put their money into local ETIs. And what role do you see in terms of the partnership between the 57 block coalition, minority owned depository institutions, and other local lenders to make this program happen?
I see that this can be a really great partnership for the city of Philadelphia and for all of us who care deeply about every community. That for those banks who have done these wrongs in the past and now want to do real repair, but also for them to see that their investments can be increased when they invest in Black and Brown communities. That this is not something that will be a money making idea for them. That when you invest fully and completely into all the gifts and the talents of people who are living in Philadelphia, everyone prospers, everyone grows. People who come to this city want to live in multicultural areas. They want to live next to Black and Brown people. They want to enjoy the cultural benefits of what it means to be a diverse city. They want that. They desire that. When we create safe spaces for Black and Brown people, we create safe spaces for all of us. And that in some way gives them an opportunity to make more resources and to make more money. So this is not this is a win-win if they could see it as a win-win. They've been doing things the same way so long, exploiting Black and Brown people. They think that's the only way that they can make profit. I want to encourage them. There is another way, but this way we all can win together.
And do you see a role in that effort for the city pension funds?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can talk about what sound investments are, and we can compare that to the investments they make in other places. And we can take a small portion of a pension fund and use it for creative ways. They have been doing this for years, and some of these things have been catastrophic, like what happened in 2008. Well, we're talking about something that won't be catastrophic at all, but would be something that can encourage and grow everybody. So let's be creative in what we do in a way that keeps the pension fund safe, but at the same time allows for these credible opportunities to invest in Black and Brown communities and Black and Brown people here in the city of Philadelphia.
Can you talk just a little bit about what the data analytics of the district attorney's office can do in terms of tracking the efficacy of the kind of programs that we're talking about?
Well, I can't give you all of the details. That will leave that to Dr. Gurr, who runs the data lab at the DAO. But I know the capacity is there to do real analytics around how we can take these targeted investments and use them in particular locations to actually monitor and evaluate the reduction in violence in those areas if we put those dollars there. Um, the attitudes and the comfort of people, the measures of all the other measures we're talking about, the levels of depression that is happening in our communities, whether that can be combated, and the quality of our schools. We can be able to measure all of that through our work at a data lab. And by doing this together, we can pull more resources together to do even more of the kind of research and evaluation that is definitely needed to move us forward.
So the district attorney's office is committed to a systemic approach
Yes,
to improving the overall conditions of the most hard-pressed communities within the city.
absolutely. Because we really can't be talking about justice. We really, as the DA has said several times, you really can't talk about justice unless you're talking about justice for everybody, and justice in every way, justice through healing, justice through resources, investment. If we're going to really deal with the level of violence in our community, it's not going to be how many people we prosecute that's going to address the violence. It's not going to be about how many people we arrest. It's about how many lives we can turn around through real community investment that can save lives so that they never shoot someone or kill somebody in the first place. People don't necessarily want, with everything in their power, they don't want necessarily someone to be prosecuted. What they want is the person never to be injured, never to be killed in the first place. And the way we surely do that is by community investment. We can stop the bleeding of our city.
It's a real ray of hope. Vanessa, can I turn this back to you? And we have some folks who have not been on Financing Philadelphia's Future before. If you could talk to them about the forum list and ways that they can participate in the ongoing conversation.
Sure, sure. Welcome, everybody. You have joined us for Financing Philadelphia's Future. This is a monthly program that happens on the last Tuesday of every month. And today we have Reverend Holston, Reverend Greg Holston, who is with the 52 Block Coalition. And he's also with the District Attorney's Office. You can join the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition listserv by putting your name and your phone number and your email into the chat below. We will capture that and follow up with you. Again, welcome. And you can go to the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition and you can see all of our, what is it, more than 50 episodes of Financing Philadelphia's Future there.
This is number 35.
Number 35. Okay. It's not all. There you go. Reverend Holston, thank you so much for being here. Can you talk about, particularly, I'm familiar with Every Murder is Real. Actually, in a swim class with the founder of it, and that program is very much focused on helping families to grieve and to sort of heal after a family member has been murdered. So they are one of these many organizations that is working with you in the coalition. Tell us about some of the other organizations and what their activities may be.
Yes, Father Day, Frontline Dads is run by Reuben Jones, who is an individual who is formerly incarcerated, who came back to give back to his community. And they work directly with young men and try to mentor young men, try to turn their lives from formerly violent lives into being real peacemakers in the city of Philadelphia. Also, they work to do a lot of greening and cleaning and food distribution in some of our poorest neighborhoods. I want to remind folk how poor Philadelphia really is in sections. There are some sections of our city, the level of poverty is like Mississippi, is like parts of Alabama. And we just have to be reminded that's the level of poverty that exists right here. He addresses that all the day. Then you have Mothers in Charge, led by Dr. Dorothy Johnson Sprife, who directs much of her energy at women, particularly mothers who have lost loved ones, and hoping those mothers to help themselves, to heal themselves. She recognizes no matter how much justice is done in the criminal justice system, that brought the killer her son to justice, it did nothing for healing her and healing her of the hurt and the loss. And so she has dedicated the last 20 years of her life to make sure that other mothers and women who have gone through these situations can find healing in their lives as well. The Father's Day Committee has long been here in the city of Philadelphia. Bilal, who's been just an incredible leader for the last 50 years around gang violence and gun violence, has made a real difference in this city. Again, he directs it at young men as well, a mentoring program, and encouraging fathers to reconnect with their sons that they may have lost some connection with. They're all parts of the 57 Block Coalition.
Thank you. It's good to hear about those particular things. Just to let the audience know, so we end in a half hour, which is about 2 minutes away, but we stop the recording, but we will continue the conversation. So feel free to stay there, but we will stop the recording. But the recordings then get loaded up, thanks to our dear Kay Lasker, in a couple of days. Peter, I'm going to take it back to you. Do we have any other questions?
Well, we do have some questions, but while we're still in the recorded session, we'd like to give you the last word, Reverend Holston. If there's any parting words that you want for the recorded session, that will be up on our website.
And let me add, how do people get in touch with the coalition if they want to join, maybe if they're not already part of it?
57blockphilly.org, 57blockphilly.org. And you can actually put a contact list in, and that's actually how you join, by just becoming a contact member with us. If you believe in what we're trying to do, that's enough for us to feel that you should come and join us and support this great effort.
Wonderful.
And I guess in the last part of the recording, I was simply saying this idea of directing investment in this way, using pension dollars in a safe and equitable way, is a great way of having a designated amount of dollars to gun violence prevention organizations so they can now plan in the next 2, 3, 4 years ahead in their work. And that can make all the difference. I mind folk by the fact that New York is 8 times bigger than Philly, but had fewer shootings than Philadelphia.
Hmm.
That's because they have made these kind of investments for years, and now they're going up to a $500 million investing in gun violence prevention. We are behind the scenes of what we need to do as a city. We can do more. These kinds of targeted investments is a great way to start.
Thank you so much, Reverend Holston. All right, I think we're going to turn
Vanessa,
off the recording.
there are some questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to. Some of them having to do with the politics of the situation, which I think are really important to discuss, and probably better to discuss after we turn off the recording.
I would concur.